Matt and Emily, let me introduce you. We have Mathew, Norbury, and Emily Blaney on with us today. We're talking about BrainFit. The timing's bang on perfect, guys. Yesterday was World Menopause Day, and everyone thinks that menopause starts in the ovaries, when in fact it probably really starts in the brain. So I'd really like to get started by this connection between, the brain and menopause. And I've got a little stat here, which I'm going to read to you, that estrogen fuels glucose metabolism in the brain. It is literally brain food. During perimenopause, estrogen levels fluctuate and then plummet, leading to a 20 to 25% of drop in brain energy. And this is measured on, I think it's called PET scans. And women do report, women in later life, midlife, do report brain fog, word loss, forgetfulness, concentration issues, fatigue. The brain's literally running on low battery. How do you respond to that?
Do you like to go, Emily? It's great to be here, Lawrence. Thanks ever so much for asking us. I'm the founder and CEO of FC Labs, but I'm BrainFit, our first products. But I'm a marketing guy. So I quite often feel very underqualified to be talking about this stuff.
I'm the psychologist on the team, so sort of my skill set and my sort of expertise is to do with the mentality side of things, and the sort of what we're doing with our mind and how to train our mind to be brain fit to cope with the challenges, whatever challenges we face, including menopause. And I just, as listening to you there, I just sort of, it got me thinking about how, what are the, we talk a lot about this idea of the brain battery, and how there are ways to fuel the brain. I just lost my train of thought there. Feel like, yeah.
I know the feeling. Yeah. It's been one of those weekends, actually.
Yeah.
You can edit this bit out, but we've used it publicly. It started out as an in-house joke. We're very much about helping people to get brain fit, to build stronger, fitter brains, and particularly this prefrontal cortex area, which is so important. But the opposite of brain fit, we sometimes feel a little bit brain fucked. Which is at the end of a long weekend. I don't know what yours has been like, Emily. Mine's been quite intense. You just feel it's harder to and you're sort of wading through treacle almost. And I think it's something which we all feel from time to time, whether it's because we're particularly tired or stressed or dehydrated. I mean, there's a whole host of factors have an impact on the brain and give us that kind of feeling sometimes of some of the terms associated with menopause aren't just associated with menopause. So that kind of brain fog, that idea of kind of walking into a room and forgetting why you're there. And I feel that kind of thing myself sometimes too. And I think it's interesting though, and this is where I do start to feel slightly unqualified to comment about that. And it's why Chris, our neuroscientist, would have been fantastic, because a combination of chemistry and neuroscience and what exactly is going on in the brain during menopause in relation to estrogen in particular is the key factor here. And that's absolutely having an impact and leading to these feelings of brain fog. And I know many women who describe it in different ways, but it's all essentially the same thing. That quite often it's that brain fog. It's the sort of feeling like it's just not working properly, like you're kind of wading through treacle to do things that used to be completely normal and much more straightforward. And it is a fascinating area. I as a marketing guy as well, I'm always very, very concerned about any claims we might make as a business, as a brand, around having some sort of cure when we're not a medical device, but we do. And this, I think Emily can talk more to this and much better than I can in terms of helping to build that fitter, stronger prefrontal cortex just puts you in control of how you respond to challenges is the best way to describe it, I think. And choosing how you respond to menopause is do you think that's the right way to put it, Emily? That's kind of, we're not fixing anything that's going on in the brain associated with menopause, but we're helping people to be able to choose how they respond to it, I think.
From the BrainFit's approach and the BrainFit philosophy to building to the mental strength and this circuitry in the brain for our BrainFit gym is all about getting good, using the brain's neuroplasticity to get good at feeling good. That's our sort of central philosophy and what we're doing in our mental and our BrainFit gym. So the brain, we're releasing this nice steady flow of chemicals such as serotonin that keeps things nice and calm. So it's more about then we're more able to not get stressed about the fact that the changes that we're going through. The brain's able to keep calm and then has access to all the resources that we have in our brain to be able to adapt and deal with the challenges we're facing. Does that make sense?
It does, Emily, because from what I can understand and talking to some other experts, the menopause is not failing you, it's restructuring itself. It's adapting to a new environment. So what you guys are basically saying, I presume is the way I understand it, is that you can get your brain to be fitter, just like any other muscle in your body, and we all know the importance of strength training. So is that what you're basically referring to? Is this strength training for the brain, for the mind?
Essentially, yeah, that is it. That's what we're doing. So you're able to. Our emotional centers are powerful, right? They're designed for that fight, flight, for getting us to safety. When that part of the brain has the control, we're not sort of making good decisions. We're raising cortisol. We're living in our primitive centers. That then actually that increased cortisol starts to weaken all our cognitive functions. So when we build up the strength in that prefrontal cortex, is able to take the control over the emotional centers so that we calm it down and we're able to think and use all our resources in our intellectual minds as best we can so that it finds solutions and it stays calm. It says, this puts it in its box, this is like adapts basically. We adapt to the changes rather than trying to fight them or run away from them and sort of bury our head in the sand. We're not wasting mental energy trying to fight it or resist it. We are calm about it and we are confident in our ability to continue to thrive and do the things we want to do regardless of the changes we're going through, rather than it getting sort of being frightened by it and feeling like it's taking over our life, and then the cortisol rises, and then it's sort of, it's that sort of, we're keeping our, what do I want? We're keeping in control of it, so I can still, I'm adapting, but I'm still sort of being who I want to be and being.
So that makes a lot of sense to me. And I tell you why, Emily, it makes a lot of sense to me is I speak to so many women who, are going through perimenopause or menopause, and they're getting night after night after night after night, month after month of poor sleep, waking up in the middle of the night, struggling to fall asleep again, struggling to fall asleep. A lot of them are finding that they're discovering the ADHD, and we all know with ADHD, you struggle to sleep as well. So you can't fall asleep, and then when you wake up, you can't fall asleep again. Then they've got restless leg syndrome. They're going through hot sweats and all these type of things. And then they wake up in the morning feeling more exhausted than they did the day before. And I can understand what you've just said. There is so many people then, there's fight or flight comes in. So, I can't have another night like that. And you start to worry. Yeah. Is that how you can help people to manage those?
Absolutely.
Not manage the symptoms, but manage the way we think about it.
Yeah. And basically when the brain is fit, it's essentially, if you're using a car analogy, you're waking up every day with a full tank, and then you're using your mental energy efficiently, so that the sort of it stays, you're not burning out by lunchtime. When our brains are unfit, we're waking up with not much in the tank, and then we aren't using our mental energy efficiently. We're like either we're burning it too hard by trying to do, because the conscious can only hold about 3 or 4 things in your mind at once, so we're doing this task switching, which takes a lot of it is really uses a lot of mental energy. So we're burning our mental energy too quickly, so not being efficient. So we're running on fumes by in the middle of the day, so raises cortisol, and then we get into those sugar cravings to try and get through, and then we're awake at the night, and it's all sort of a fitter brain is to say that one that's sort of waking up feeling good, ready to go at the end of the day, good about the day, ready to sleep. And it's that's a nice sort of it's efficient with its mental energy and its sort of processing of stress. And
it's just like physical fitness, Lawrence. It's a good way to look at it, because if you are physically fit and you go to the gym maybe, or you run, or whatever it might be that you do to build and improve your physical fitness, it just puts you in a better position to cope with whatever challenges life might throw at you, or you've chosen to take on. Obviously, if you're training for a particular event, then you build your physical fitness to better be able to cope with that challenge. Equally, if you are physically fit and you are injured in some way, you will be better able to cope. You will recover faster, or from an illness, or whatever it might be. Typically, the physically fitter you are, the better able you are to tackle, to cope with whatever life throws at you. And the brain's no different. And I think that's building a fitter, because we are is a lot, not exclusively, my understanding with the menopause, a big factor is it's affecting the prefrontal cortex. That's why you struggle with the brain fog and memory lapses and so on, difficulty focusing and concentrating. And when we're not making any claims that about we're kind of fixing it and kind of reversing hormonal changes, we're not. But having and building a fitter, stronger prefrontal cortex will allow you to, it kind of not balances out or cancels out, but it certainly makes you better able to cope, to tackle, to choose how you respond to these changes that are happening. And in some ways, in a similar sense with physical fitness, because you've got that higher level of brain fitness, you will continue to be able to perform better. The brain will fundamentally be, or that part of the brain will fundamentally just be working better. So all of the things the prefrontal cortex is responsible for, so focus and attention and decision making and so on, will just be better. So even though there are all these other things happening which are working to reduce that, to have a negative impact, you are in a stronger position to not to fight back. That's probably the wrong way to put it, but to cope, to better able to keep performing at the level that you want to, whatever it is that means to you.
Yeah. And we know that the stress, the cortisol, it makes it worse. If you've got the brain fog from the estrogen changes, we know it's not necessarily the events that occur that cause that. So that it's our perception. It's how we sort of perceive the events and the stories we tell ourselves. So from my experience of brain fog, you have a choice of how you respond, and then that choice and that story and the way you perceive that's what raises anxiety. So you can understand having brain fog, it feels like you're not yourself, and that can be really scary. That can raise that amygdala, that emotional center, because it's you can't connect with your partner, or it's taking something personal away from you. So you're emotional. That's emotional, like that's you. But if that keeps the control, like that it's going to just it's just going to make it worse. So you have a choice of how you respond, how you respond to that brain fog, or how you respond to the symptoms that you're seeing. I've just watched the differences in my personal life with myself and my friends we're going through perimenopause at the moment, and there's people are reacting very differently. They're sort of, my friends are not really sort of consciously reacting, they're sort of emotionally reacting, so it's that when we talk about with these exercises, it's the BrainFit gym, it's building that mental strength, and like with physical strength, it takes time to build up.
Brilliant.
To cover that. So,
I have to agree with
sorry.
you on that. So I think obviously, and we understand, with all the different things that a woman is going through from symptoms point of view, but one has to take into account it's how you digest all those symptoms, what your brain's going through, the emotional connection, the self-esteem, the almost mourning the loss of you, wanting you back. We all know you can't come back. It's just, there's going to be a new you. So one of the things that we notice is, and through conversation, and so many women say to us, the way they start to handle coming home from work or handle a stressful environment is they go to the sugar craving and they go to the wine o'clock, and they start drinking a few glasses of wine. And it's really important that we also say that that doesn't help you either. Both of those two traits are not helping you in any way, shape or form.
No. Well, we say what we do as part of our BrainFit induction is an explanation of how the brain works. And what we say in that is that, your REM sleep, your rapid eye movement sleep, is the stage of sleep where your brain is processing these emotional memories from the day and changing the form of the memory and putting a narrative on it so you can have control over it. So the emotion's gone. Your REM sleep is very important, so those emotions that if you got upset and stressed during the day, they're getting processed overnight. If you have in alcohol, significantly impacts your REM sleep, so you're just making it so much worse for yourself. You get this build up of we call it the stress bucket. It just starts to rise, because you're piling sort of too much in during the day with your negative thinking, and it's starting to rise, and you're not getting it processed out at the night. So then your brain's just going to wake you up in the night, because we can only have about 20% of our sleep patterns for REM sleep. So if we're sort of, if we're not sort of getting it it just sort of starts getting a bit of a vicious cycle. So you're making it so much worse for yourself. I mean, the odd drink is we sort of say to people, it's like when you're on a diet, you're trying to lose weight and get physically fitter. The odd chocolate bar or whatever is not going to make a difference. It's the habits of the day, like every day, like this is my habit, because the brain is so creative. It can have other ways to, if we're just sticking into these habits, we just get stuck, and we're not using all the resources in our brain. So it's the sleep, the alcohol is just going to stop your REM sleep process.
It's kind of a vicious cycle, isn't it? As well, you just so lack of sleep. Then again, you're reaching for those sugar hits to give you that boost, or you're just not making good decisions. So it just spirals, and then it's sometimes difficult to reverse that, but you can, and then it becomes a virtuous cycle.
That's all our mental exercises are, is focusing your concentration on the things that have been good with various mental exercises, so the brain gets good at feeling good, but you're focusing your attention and concentrating on the things that have been good, releasing a little bit of serotonin. You do that each time you're building up the strength in your positivity muscle, building up those networks, so it gets easier. So you're taking essentially your attention away from the menopause, that whatever the thing is, you're focusing your attention elsewhere. That's a big part of what we're doing.
So you're focusing on your strengths, not on your weaknesses, which is, if you were on the sporting field, is exactly what they would be doing, is they would get you to focus on what you're good at more than focusing on what you're bad at. So, okay, I get that. That makes sense. What about ADHD? So a lot of women are finding out as they're going into perimenopause, menopause, that they've got ADHD. Is the strengthening of the brain an important factor for people with ADHD?
We were just talking a lot about this last week, actually. Yeah. I'll let you go, Emily.
It essentially, from my experience of working with people with ADHD and the brain fitness training, is it was coming back to calming the emotion, calming the brain down by releasing this serotonin. So it's not calm, like the brain isn't calm, but it's calm enough to be able to just that data is irrelevant. I can discard that. So to organise the data that's coming in, like what's tend to have with the ADHD brain, is everything's a priority and it's just overwhelming. So the brain gets calmed, the brain enough, the sort of the racing thoughts enough to be like to order that one I need to focus on first, that one next, that one's useless, I can discard that. So just to, that's sort of what it seems to do with our cognitive functions with ADHD. It seems to just slow it down enough to be able to just order things, then we can make decisions, so that's what I've noticed with ADHD, with the exercises.
Yeah, and I think that there's some things, I know people talk about this. There's some of the symptoms associated, cognitive symptoms associated with menopause are very, very similar to ADHD, and it's an interesting one where whether it does just kind of bring these traits to the fore, it kind of amplifies them, and that's what then prompts these the diagnoses. But even without a formal diagnosis of ADHD, there are still some of these cognitive symptoms are very, very similar. So sort of problems with planning and organizing and staying on task and that kind of thing, just executive function in the prefrontal cortex in general, working memory, saying before about that kind of walking into a room and forgetting what you've got in for. So they're very, very similar anyway, the effects. And I think one thing we were talking about this week with ADHD in particular is that, again, we're not a medical device. We're not fixing or treating ADHD specifically in that way. And it's very important to make that. And to be frank, it's not that, although I know that a whole host of different things can help people with ADHD, including medication, but we're more about helping people to better understand the brain and to kind of optimize it for whatever type of brain they happen to be, whether it's an ADHD brain or a menopausal brain. There are still as with ADHD, there are some kind of real strong positives to it, like the sort of the creativity and the hyperfocus, and being able to kind of optimize for that is really what we're about, so people can better understand specific factors that are affecting their brain. And I think that's where it's not just an overlap between for us anyway, between menopause and ADHD. It's just we've got this thing between our ears which we know virtually nothing about, and it's fundamental to everything. It's fundamental to our health and well-being and performance and happiness ultimately, and we don't know anything about it. We're just constantly kind of guessing. And I think particularly when people are going through phases of their life or living with certain conditions, so menopause and ADHD, I think just focus the attention on, I could really benefit from better understanding what's going on here. And we definitely see a lot of interest from people. It's why we first spoke, I think, Lawrence, wasn't it, about both ADHD and menopause. And there's other people who are taking on particularly challenging jobs or tasks at work, or particularly dangerous jobs or tasks at work, where they think, I could really do with better being able to understand what's going on in here so I can optimize it for whatever I want to be doing. And just fundamentally building that strength and resilience and readiness is another good word, actually. You're kind of ready to tackle whatever it is you're having to or want to.
I think managing your expectations as well, if you know sort of how your brain is currently performing and functioning, be like, well, it helps you to make better decisions, and to manage it. If you're doing a job, if you're going through the menopause, I can imagine doing a job that's quite demanding on your cognitive functions. We've got, project man, it involves a lot to do with planning. You really help the situation by sort of managing your expectations. Okay, if things are going to be a bit slower for me at certain times, or so how can I manage that? I think we make the situation so much worse for ourselves when we expect our brain to perform how it used to. It's all about adapting again, isn't it? It's like as we get older, I can't run as fast as I used to, and if I go out on a run expecting that I'm going to cause an injury or whatever, so it's like it's that process of adapting, isn't it? That you've got your brain is changing, so we're adapting as our brain's changing. What can my brain do now? Managing our expectations.
I think, and those are both very good points from both of you. But I think we as the human race, both male and female, we almost have normalized the joke around getting older. Oops, I left my car keys. I'm getting older. Oh, I'm more forgetful. Oops, it's because I'm getting older. So we almost start to tell ourselves this anyway. You know, we're normalizing that forgetfulness, if that makes sense. And then at the same time, today, more so than 20 years ago, we are just bombarded. We're being bombarded by noise at work. We're being bombarded by noise at home. When we're not watching the TV during the adverts, we're jumping on social media. So our poor brains is just being bombarded from all different directions all the time. You know, a lot of the things, and please, I really understand from a female point of view what they're going through and the differences in the brains. But I think as humans, as a whole, we're being bombarded anyway. We're trying to take on too much. And I'm not sure if it is always we're getting older. Maybe we need to learn to say, you know, we're not just getting older. There's 20-year-olds who are forgetting their car keys and 25-year-olds who are forgetting their wallets. So this is just normal human practice.
Yeah, and I think there's a tendency as if you're going through the menopause to place the blame on men. Everything is to do with the menopause, meaning then the reasoning then being, well, there's nothing I can do. You know, it's that. But actually, if we sort of scrutinise a bit more, it's probably it's not like you just said there that it's not just the menopause. There's a lot of sort of lifestyle factors and things that we're doing that we have complete control over, and changing those, you can see, will make a big difference. You know, like you just said there, like just slowing things down a bit. You know, the brain isn't meant to be stimulated, working at such. It's, you know, well, it's a busy world, so now our minds are busy. You know, because we've adapted to living in the busy world, but that's very stressful for the prefrontal cortex. You know, it can't sustain that. So we need to learn how to drive our machine, right? So we need to learn to sort of rest it better, and to sort of, if it's understimulated, stimulate. You know, it's that making better decisions for our brain, just giving our brain a bit of thought. Really, if we gave it half of our, you know, attention, the same we do our body, we, you know, just taking care of it and giving it a bit of our time and attention.
I just written that down, Emily, and I think this is really important for our listeners to hear. So I just written down that it's acceptable now to go to the gym. It's acceptable to eat better, to drink less, to reduce your sugars. And we always talk about longevity of life. You know, we're all accepting you should be eating more fruit, more vegetables. You should, you know, just be looking after your body. But without our brain, we don't have a body. So, you know, some of the worst diseases.
We just take it for granted.
Yeah, of course. Some of the worst diseases out there are both brain related, which is dementia and Alzheimer's. And then we start to worry about it when it looks like you might possibly have it. But surely we should be looking at it 20 years in advance, going, we should be training our brains the same way that we're training our bodies, if not putting more time into our brains.
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's right. Absolutely.
You used the word, Emily, a couple of minutes or so ago, adapt. So you're just able to adapt. Things aren't a surprise, I suppose, is another way of looking at it. But in this modern world and modern workplace now, especially with AI, and it's been the last few decades, just the rate of change and progress of technology, and we're not keeping up. I think it would be fair to say. I don't feel like I'm keeping up. And constantly having to learn new skills, particularly over the last year or so with AI. And it's an absolute game to this new industrial revolution powered by AI. But I think we were already struggling to keep up with progress. I think, Emily, I think one of the first things when we first met, and I remember you saying something about we have this this tool, this car. I think you compared it to like a supercar, like a Ferrari. We've got this amazing thing, but we're asking it to drive up a mountain rather than race around the track. It's not designed to do what we're asking it to do now.
We seem to talk about cars a lot, don't we? But it's a useful way of sort of talking about your brain. You know, it's essentially going, when you're working your brain too hard, it's like having a sports car. You drive it up a mountain, I think I remember saying, and going, oh, my car's useless. You know, I've got to look, it won't do this. And it's like, well, actually, if you drive it on the terrain, it's meant to. then it will show you what it's capable of. And it's the same with your prefrontal cortex. Like if it's like we talk about this busy world, if it's sort of you're over demanding it, and because data comes at us so quickly, and we don't close all the tabs down, we forget, so we've got all these tabs open, and it's like using the sort of a computer analogy, got all the tabs open, like you're going to start buffering all the processing speeds, it's sort of it's draining for the brain. So it's sort of, there's a lot, there will be a lot that's menopause playing a part, but there will be a lot that's just better understand how to, which is where we come in, better understand your brain and how to sort of drive it. And, and I imagine that would make a significant percentage of, what's going on as well. And if you can, that would sort of help.
Yeah,
understanding.
It's that idea of adapting, isn't it? Again, that you're just having to adapt to a phase in your life, to changes which in many ways are unavoidable. It's hormonal changes are affecting the brain, and some of the effects are ones that have quite a negative impact. But you've been able to adapt to that, been able to learn and to optimize. Again, I used that word before.
That emotional centre it starts with like caring about things, like it's we go into problems when we sort of care too much about everything really, or when we really do hold on to things. But actually, as you get fitter, you find like it's sort of, we're more accepting of the data, like we're making this proper, this is what it is, rather than sort of wishing it wasn't. We're like, okay, this is what we are. And also not really caring too much, this is what it is, but that's okay. I'm still, it's not that big a deal to me. That's what we mean when we sort of talk about being really sort of unstressable, really, which is the sort of super level of, that's a lean mind. That is when we talk about mental weight. That's very brain fit, but it's it's that sort of, well, this is happening. Like I'm completely ready for it. This readiness. I'm ready. Sort of, it's not a problem for me. I'm just going to face it head on and just keep on. That's sort of how it feels when you're brain fit.
Emily and Matt, one of the things that really scare me as a man, and I love my wife and I love my daughter dearly, but one of the things that scares me is when I read stats that 2/3 of all Alzheimer cases worldwide are female. And then you read other things about perimenopausal transition is now seen as a neurological risk window, and that your brain changes start up to a decade before you even see the symptoms appearing. So realistically, if you go and digest all that information, you look at the age of going into perimenopause, really any woman specifically should start to be training her brain, knowing that she's going to be going through brain changes. She should really start from around the age of 30, if not just bring it in as part of daily exercise. But from the age of 30, if you want to give yourself the best chance of not getting dementia, not getting Alzheimer's as a female, you should be really, really looking at training your brain, because your brain is going to go through change.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and one we might steal actually to make a bit more as well, because we are very, very much of the view that we need to treat our brain health and fitness in the same way we do our physical. Like you were saying before, it's totally normal nowadays. I mean, we've all got it. Some is better than others with some, but with the brain, and we are in many ways talking about mental health here too. We deliberately avoid defining what we do as mental health, because there's too much stigma, too much kind of preconception of what mental health encompasses. I think people hear mental health and instantly think mental illness, where in terms of that prefrontal cortex, one of the things it's responsible for is regulation of emotions, which is where it's particularly relevant to mental health. But our view in terms of trying to make caring for your brain health and fitness and performance as easy through our technology, but also as normal in terms of the approach and the tools and the techniques and the workouts. And we very deliberately use language which is very similar to what people will be familiar with from physical fitness. And it's trying to make it as simple and accessible and therefore as normal as we possibly can. And you can guarantee, we can all guarantee that we will face challenges in our lives. We will face things we need to adapt to. We'll whether it's life or work, whether we choose to take on some of these challenges or whether they're just things we can't avoid. Like life and work have a annoying habit of throwing things at us that when we least expect it. And you're absolutely right. We know that, so we should prepare in some way. Some will do it more than others, but I think menopause is a good example where you know it's going to happen, and you've got, admittedly, a window, but I mean, it happens at different times. I know, but you generally know it's going to happen. So if you can prepare for it and make it easier, I don't like that language, but you're preparing for it so that you can better cope. You're ready for it. Why wouldn't you? Is my question, really. But then that's the same across the board. It's like we know that life will be challenging. There will be stresses. Why would you not do what you can to better prepare yourself? And I think the world society is moving towards that. The fact that you've not been able to measure the brain in any way outside the lab is one of the things that's fundamental to it. I think there's a whole host of trends which are making it more normal, more acceptable. I think because we've got to this point with other wearable technology and physical health and fitness, we're kind of we're measuring everything, and it's now almost become hang on, with this like really important bit that we're not. And technology science has progressed to the point where it's becoming much more feasible to do it in the real world, to do it at a sort of accessible cost, to simplify the data, to process that and provide useful insights for people. So it's all become much more feasible than it used to be. And I think that it will sort of collide with a growing demand from people to better understand what's going on in the brain, and certain people more than others, as I was saying before, where they have a kind of, I suppose, a greater interest in what's going on in their brain than others. We've talked before about ADHD in one of those scenarios, and I think menopause could be one of those areas too. But we would say, if you have the opportunity to better understand what's going on in your brain and to build the fitness which will allow you to live ultimately a happy life. I mean, we talk about this quite a lot. Ultimately, you kind of choose to be happy. This sounds a bit kind of California, but it's not. That's why we're here. It's why we're on this planet. So yeah, you're absolutely right. If you have the ability to do it, if science and technology has progressed to allow you to, we would like as many people as possible to be brain fit.
I think with the menopause, it's certainly it's new territory, right? You don't know. You're going into the unknown. You have this thing that you know is going to have to go through, and it's you don't know what it's going to be like and how long it's going to last for, and what you're going to be left with at the other side. You know, it's a big unknown. So any unknown, menopause, anything we're going through that's unknown, our emotional brain is going to go, you know, is going to take some control, you know, and what the emotional brain's going to then do is it's going to forecast like worst case scenarios. It's how it works. So we can take enough control back from the brain doing that by let's just wait and see, and just use the data we've got in front, you know, because that brain's always going to want to go worst case scenario and project a future like worst case, and then we start preparing for that, and we're sort of braced for a fight going into this like thing. Actually, when we keep it calm and go, we'll just wait and see, we can always cope, you know. And it's sort of that's the brain fitness element too. When we keep the brain calm, then we can always cope when we, it's when our emotional centers start taking. So that's a lot of the brain fitness training is sort of understanding, which part of your brain's got the control, and sort of keep just strengthening that prefrontal control,
Just so our listeners can understand, if someone wanted to do your BrainFit program, is it via an app? Is it a physical visit to someone like yourself, Emily? How long do I have to do it for on a daily basis? Is it done 3 times a week or twice a week, or an hour a day, 45-minute sessions? Can you just give us an overview on that?
Yeah, it's available in our app. I've just finished the BrainFit gym induction video. So it's a nice video that explains how it all works. And essentially, we say, if you really are in a place where you feel quite stuck, like we talk about sort of, it's a process of losing mental weight, so it's this idea of like we're mentally overweight and we've got to shred the mental weight. That's sort of what's happening in the BrainFit gym, and that process takes a similar sort of time as you would try to lose excess body fat. It doesn't happen overnight, but it certainly doesn't take years and years either. So it goes into that in the induction video. But really, from what we've got, BrainFit workouts and different mental exercises you can do. It's all available on our app. But we say a good workout once or twice a week for 2 to 3 months, and you're going to start noticing a difference. There's a point at which where we are what we call like brain fit, like your machine is working, you are consistently waking each day, full tank, ready to go, and you're in control. So you've got that strength in your prefrontal cortex. So once you've got the strength, it's very easy then to maintain it. It's like when you go to the gym, if you've lost the weight, it's then relatively quite easy just to maintain it. It's the same with the brain. We have like a structured training program to get the sort of mental weight off, between 2 to 6 months, depending on sort of your context, your situation. But we're not talking years and years here. And then once that's sort of off, and we've got that sort of consistency of like we're waking each day full tank, and we're being sort of efficient with our energy, and that's sort of, we're waking each day feeling good, generally speaking, going to bed each day feeling good, and that's sort of the norm. Like you are what we call sort of brain fit, and then you don't really, then you just then work out as and when you want to or need to, just to sort of keep the maintenance up. So it isn't sort of a lifetime of having to train really hard. There's a sort of a structured part. We're just writing a program now, a sort of a structured 12-week training program to help people sort of get it going.
It is just like physical fitness, Lawrence, to be honest. If people can think about it in exactly the same way, and whatever your goals might be from a physical fitness point of view, brain fitness is the same. You might have a particularly stressful or challenging job that you want to better be able to cope with, or you might just want to build brain fitness in general. Like you might be taking on, like from a physical fitness point of view, you don't have to be doing a marathon to want to improve your physical fitness, just so you feel kind of happier and healthier and can kick a football about in the park with the kids, or whatever it might be. And we see these messages in sort of public health campaigns and gyms marketing campaigns and all that kind of thing. Brain fitness is just the same. And again, the tools and the techniques that are in the app, are in the workouts, are deliberately designed to be simple. You don't, just like with physical fitness, you don't have to go to a gym to get physically fit. You don't have to have a personal trainer. You don't have to have special kit. You don't have to wear a Garmin or Apple Watch or a Fitbit to measure it. But it helps that if you can measure it, you can manage it. And there's an element to, we don't particularly like the term gamification, but that is essentially what's at play when people are measuring things to then try and improve them. Because as humans, we like data, we like targets, we like things we can measure. So it just helps to adopt the habits. Again, as with physical health and fitness, it's exactly the same with brain health and fitness. And there's 4 things you could do.
Yeah, one of the easiest places to start usually is to get a nice healthy flow of blood to the brain. The brain needs oxygen, right? So even more so in this busy, demanding world, that the energy demands are increased on the brain. But now we're more sedentary than ever. We spend this thing's always buzzing at me, remembering to move. So keep raising your heart rate is probably one of the easiest ways to start to improve your brain fitness. You don't need to go to the gym for an hour, run, a good sort of 3 or 4 times a week for 6 minutes at a time. So, small bits like that will really go a long way. So, or doing some press ups whilst the kettle's on, it's these things like raising your heart rate often really does help.
And can you do it whilst on the move? So if I was going for a walk, can I do stuff then to help me? Because so I'm doing 2 things at once, because we're all struggling for time. So, if I'm sitting on a tube, can I be doing some BrainFit? If I'm going for a walk, can I do some BrainFit? If I'm sitting in an aircraft terminal, can I do some BrainFit?
It's all our mental workouts are being designed ideally for you to do it whilst you're moving your body. We want that healthy flow blood. So ideally you're out walking, or you're, on a treadmill or something, on a static bike or something like that. But before we do a mental exercise in a workout, we always raise the heart rate as well. So we have like a quick burst of raising the heart rate just to get the blood flowing. So they have been designed specifically for you to be out and about walking. But it's not essential, but we do recommend it because it's a big part. That's why when you're tracking your brain fitness through your wearable, a big part of one of the core metrics that feeds into your core score is your activity levels. It's such a big part of your overall brain fitness.
And there's simple features, simple tools within the app as well, which in some ways sound too simple to be effective, which is a challenge for us in some ways. But if you try it, it's incredibly powerful. And one of them that I really like and have found a massive benefit from over the last year or so is just so in the app we talk about beaming. So a beam is just something that makes you feel good. It's something that makes you smile, makes you happy. It could be a tiny thing. It could just be that you've woken up and the sun's shining, or you're walking down the street and a stranger smiles at you. So it could be tiny little things. It doesn't need to be great, huge events, but just becoming aware of those actually it's a challenge. It's a workout. Actually, it's part of the kind of exercises that Emily does within the workouts. But you can do that whenever and wherever you are. You can, and you don't have to share it. You can log it in the app. You can share it through the app if you want to, which is great. But you don't have to have an app. You don't have to have wearable tech that can look at your brain fitness as ours does, or integrate the wearable on your wrist to help us to understand the factors affecting it. And you don't need any of that, but it does just help. And one of the simplest things, this idea of beaming, is so profound. I've found myself, because it's so difficult nowadays. I think all of this stuff, the messages we're bombarded with, we're so busy and stressed and sort of constantly in that fight or flight state, that the brain's looking for all the negative stuff, and it's focusing in on the negatives and the things it thinks are going to kill us. And it then does become an effort. It does become an exercise, a workout, to try to kind of reset it, if that's the right word, to more naturally focus on positives. And for me, that's a real sign of brain fitness, is that you do. It's not that you're suddenly some kind of serene Tibetan monk kind of person, but you're certainly more generally positive. You find it easier. You're noticing things that, and just being conscious. I think that, Emily, your phrase, you just get good at being happy, basically, is just the way.
Just feeling good, that satisfaction, like today's been a good day, I'm pleased with today, or I'm good enough. Like, it's that good enough that the serotonin sort of gives that feeling of like that enoughness. I've done enough. I can now stop working and enjoy my evening with my, or I am good enough. It's that sort of, that calms things down, and that comes with the regular. We talk about the 3 Ps, the positive thinking, actions and interactions, so starting to do to focus in that direction. And we talk about this sort of daily mental calorie deficit, you know, so it's not about never thinking negatively or forcing yourself to be positive. It's deliberately focusing in the other direction, you know. It's being like, yes, I can see the negative, but I'm going to turn my attention over here because this is what I want, this is what I'm growing, you know. So when you get so when each day there's more time spent concentrating on the positives, you're starting to bring bit by bit that like mental calorie deficit down, you know. So that's how we sort of conceptualize it, you know.
So in life, you can count calories, you can go for a BMI, you can do a heart rate monitor, you can do blood pressure. But is there any sort of brain health screening? Is there a happy pill test that you can take which says to you, you know, you're going in the right direction, or, you know, is this just something we have to understand that we've got to sort for ourselves?
Well, no, you can go and get a brain scan, a brain health checkup right now. It'll cost you several thousands of pounds, and you'll need to go and sit in an MRI machine for a wee while, which is not always particularly pleasant. So it's just a snapshot. It will give you an indication of the state of your brain health. It's useful. People, as I say, that they're available right now. You might get one as part of a particularly expensive health insurance scheme, but it is out there now. The opportunity, the gap, if you like, that we are aiming to fill is to give people those insights, those indications of brain health and fitness in real time. And we're not, at the moment, not a medical device. So we in terms of the claims we make and the nature of the data and the insights, we're like some people describe it as being like a Fitbit for the brain. It gives you a general indication of your health and fitness levels with a number of different metrics over a prolonged period of time, because you can wear it all day, every day, if you want. And our wearable BrainFit Pro is a baseball cap initially, but can be integrated into pretty much anything you might wear on your head longer term, both in terms of personal lives, but also in the workplace too. And you can probably, is it just behind, there's a hard hat over my shoulder there. We started out in high risk sectors. That was the initial problem that we identified and set out to solve, allowing individuals and their employers in these high risk sectors to better understand risk, basically. So we're talking about cognitive decline here, and decision making and attention and focus declining for all sorts of reasons in these high risk sectors. The stress, fatigue, heat, humidity, noise, even, all has an impact on the brain, and that increases risk. So it was a very, very kind of specific use case, and we're still working with businesses in those sectors to apply our technology in that way. But actually what we found was that individuals, when they heard about what we could do in terms of this kind of real time and anywhere and any time that it matters to you to understand what's going on in the brain, that's the technology that we've developed. But we realized very quickly that just being able to measure it that's not going to improve it. I use the phrase a lot: if you can measure it, you can manage it. But it's not quite as simple as that. You need the tools and the support to improve it, to manage it, to understand the data. It needs to be, and I think we don't want to be part of the problem. We don't want to be bombarding people with even more data when we're already getting so much. It's part of the problem in modern society. So we're very much about empowering people with the data to better understand what's going on in the brain, but then also providing actionable insights so that they know what to do with it. And then the personalized interactive support, so that they understand the tools and the techniques, and that's sort of the workouts and the exercises and so on, and some of the features within the app. So in terms of what this data allows us to do, there's a whole host of things that will develop over time. So we're looking at blood flow and oxygenation levels in the prefrontal cortex is basically our technology. So we essentially, it's just a huge amount of cardiovascular data, basically. So we can provide a blood pressure metric, for example, which is useful in itself, and particularly one from the brain. And we will be able to provide sort of a brain age score. So you see in wearables nowadays, many of them give you that kind of physical age, biological age. And people
Okay,
say,
my wife says I'm about 12, so I'm fine there.
that's that's a good, yeah. We do sometimes. I sometimes behave a bit like that too, but it's from a scientific point of view. Some people would argue it's not particularly accurate. It's a little bit of a gimmick in some ways. If you're like, I've got a Whoop, and it tells me that I mean, it varies quite wildly, actually. Sometimes I'm a lot older, sometimes a lot younger than my actual age in terms of biological. So it's kind of how accurate and useful really is that? But if it helps people engage with the data, if it helps people to stop and think about the things that they're doing, their choices, their lifestyles, and how they might improve it, then that's kind of job done. It's sometimes these, I hesitate to use the word gimmicks because it's got such a negative connotation, but if that works to engage people and get them to stop and think and change their behavior, then I think that's only positive. And in terms of brain health and brain age and all sorts of other things that we may do in the future with this data that we're collecting, it's incredibly powerful, incredibly exciting, actually. And but all about empowering individuals. That's really what this is about, and empowering individuals to do whatever they really want to with that data. If you're, again, we're talking about physical fitness. Not everybody wants to run a marathon. If you do, fantastic, and there will be people and technology and kit to help you build the physical fitness to do that. And we're exactly the same with the brain. There's different levels of insights and support that you might choose to access. But on a very, very simple level, just encouraging people to be more aware of it, to be able to kind of measure it and see those trends so that they can track improvement, even through very, very small changes, even if it's like just doing a short workout once or twice a week, or if it's even just the beaming, actually, that just, you don't need to do a lot to have an impact. But we do find, and then going back to the menopause and ADHD and people who are particularly interested in their brains already, we find they are some of our earliest adopters, because they have suddenly got this data that allows them to make decisions, to adjust behaviors, and to kind of optimize for whatever type of brain they have or think they might have, or whatever their brain might be going through. And in the case of menopause, it's that kind of estrogen level drop, isn't it, having the impact. So that's, if you can measure it, you can manage it, is true. But we need Emily and everything she's doing, and the tools and the features within the app to provide that support.
Emily and Matt, this has been fascinating. I'm very aware of the time. I know it's a Sunday evening. We've gone almost an hour now. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying this has been really, really interesting. I do think we need to have you back on. There's a gentleman who we talk about ADHD with, and I think there could be a bit of cross-pollination there. And it's a really important subject. So, I really do thank you guys. I love what you're doing. It just makes sense to me. Why are we not training the brain if we train every other part of our body? So it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us on. It's been nice. So come on. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's quite a nice way to spend a Sunday evening, actually. I quite enjoy it.